Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
I have to wait for my heart to slow down a little bit. Because seeing his face like that, as you could tell, you could see G's spirit in his face. He was very serious, very committed to our people and to our struggle for liberation. And it just breaks my heart that he didn't get to spend as much time outside the walls of prison as he spent within. But he would always say to me when I would visit him, and I'd just be going on, we got to get you out, we got to get you free, we got to get you out. And he'd say, I'm just walking from one prison to another. He said, we'll never be free, Safiya, baby girl, until we have a nation. And I was a lot younger then. I wasn't really young as that hip-hop group that Monifa and that crew. I wasn't that young when I met G. I'd already finished one degree, was working on another, married, 3 kids. But I was working with an organization called the National Black Human Rights Coalition in Los Angeles, California. And we had the Center for Black Survival. And I was pulled into this. I was asleep. I wasn't conscious. Let me say it. I was semi-conscious. Okay, I was semi-conscious. Because I realized that something was really, really wrong when the masses of our people were suffering the way that they were. Okay. But I wasn't a nationalist at that time. And I took a class with some guys at Cal State Los Angeles, Pan-African Studies class. And they asked me to come down to their center. You know, they said, you seem like somebody who wants to work for the people. You need to come down to our center. And I went. I didn't know how hard they wanted me to work for the people. But it was good work. It was good work. Because out of that work, got to meet Brother Shokwe Lumumba. And I got to meet Minister Farrakhan in his work while he was rebuilding the Nation of Islam. And I got to meet Geronimo, Jaga, Pratt. We were home folk. We were both from Louisiana. But he used to tell me I wasn't really from, he used to say the part of Louisiana I was from wasn't really Louisiana. Because it wasn't South Louisiana. He'd say, you East Texas, girl. You from Shreveport, you East Texas. You're not Louisiana. You don't know nothing about no gumbo and no crawfish and all of that. And I said, gee, I do know about that stuff. Ah, you just trying to claim us. You're just trying to claim us. But that was the kind of person that he was. I mean, it was really serious business. I would go to San Quentin once or twice a month to visit with him, and we would plan events that were going to happen both in Los Angeles and in San Francisco and the Oakland Bay Area to raise consciousness about his case. And he always had marching orders for you. Whenever you would show up, you would leave with a list of everything that G wanted you to do, including he was married to a Shake Pratt at that time, and he had 2 kids, and he would always give us marching orders for his Shake. You know, he says, you know, you sisters need to be models for other sisters so that they understand their role in the struggle, and that sisters' role ain't no less than anybody else's role. He says, as a matter of fact, it's probably more important than anybody else's roles, because what? You transmitting the culture to the babies. And so I would go and sit at his feet, essentially, because he was a scholar. He read everything he could get his hands on about struggles for freedom, about our history, about our people. And he used to say, you can't call yourself educated if you don't know this stuff. And he said, and then when you know this stuff, if you don't struggle for our people, something wrong with you. But that's who he was. Brilliant, kind, strong, and he never, ever felt sorry for himself. When you went in, if it happened that there was a case, or they had turned down an appeal, or some judge had refused to allow the new evidence in on his case, and we'd just be so down and broken, and you'd go see him, he'd say, wait a minute, what you expect a slave master to do? You can't, you can't let them do it. They never, ever broke his spirit. And it got to the point where when we would go in, if they knew you were coming to see G, as repressive as San Quentin was, the guards, even the other inmates, when he had just the tremendous amount of respect they had for this guy. If you saw the 60-minute special on him, when they talked about how the leader of the Aryan Nation gang held him in the utmost respect because of who he was and what he stood for. I'd often come in, and I would travel with another brother from LA. Usually it was Watani Tayumba that I would go up with. When we would go in, often the young gangbangers from LA who were in San Quentin, he'd be sitting around in the visiting room holding history lessons with them, teaching them how what they were doing was self-destructive, and telling them, don't bring that mess into my prison. And they respected him, and they learned from him. And when you think about it, G was essentially what we would call a baby right now when he was locked up for the first time. If I'm remembering correctly, Shoko, he was 22. 22 years old and leading the struggle for our people. I don't know, one of the stories that we tell about Geronimo as the leader of the Black Panther Party in Los Angeles was that when the Los Angeles Police Department came to attack him, they bombed the Panther headquarters. But because of his military expertise and his vision and foresight, he had it built up like a bunker. He'd done 2 tours in Vietnam. And so he knew what to expect from the enemy. So he fortified that center. And when they bombed, no one was killed. I think we had one sister who was slightly injured, and she had sickle cell, so she would always say, it was just from the stress of it, it was from the stress of it, you know. But he knew how to defend the people as well. That's why he was considered so dangerous. That's why he was framed. And that's why he was locked up. But he understood that as well. He understood that he was too dangerous to be out there unchecked. And sometimes I ask myself, where would our struggle be had those young brothers like Geronimo Jaga been able to continue their work on the streets? Now, I would ask that question to him sometime. Where do you think we would be, G, now? And he would always say, you know, Safiya, struggle is a protracted process. So I can't say where I would be. He said, I'm struggling in here, and I was struggling out there. But I think sometimes that we don't understand the tremendous sacrifice that brothers like Jaga made. And we don't understand and fully appreciate how that sacrifice, even though it hasn't come to fruition the way we talked about it at that time in terms of a liberated new African nation, but you know, it's coming. It's coming. But when you think about the compromises that the enemy had to make to try to discredit those people, like Geronimo Jaga, like Mutulu Shakur. And see, we don't understand that. The enemy has compromised on a number of occasions because they understood that they couldn't afford to let the masses be set on fire by people like Geronimo Jaga, by people like Mutulu Shakur, by people like Chokwe Lumumba, people who are uncompromising, who stand up and say, we want our freedom by what? Any means necessary. So they throw us a few crumbs here, and they throw us a few crumbs there, and they continue to lock up our youth. They continue to miseducate our people. Those who don't get locked up go off to war to fight for oil. They come back damaged and disenfranchised. Those who don't go to war go where? Prison. And G talked about all of that. And sometimes I wish his predictions weren't true. He said, if we don't get a hold of drugs in our community, if we don't get a hold of our children's education, ourselves, if we keep letting the enemy educate our babies, their prison industrial complex, Yes, and he was using that term back in the 70s. A prison industrial complex. He said that's exactly where we're going. That's exactly what we're going to see. The new slavery, where black men work in prison for 8 to 10 cents an hour, and they're going to be locked up for little or nothing. Another thing we have to understand, though, is that although he's no longer here with us physically, he's here with us spiritually. His teachings will be with us, and he's in our hearts. So we have to learn to look deep down inside sometime to spirit. You know, as a young nationalist, I wasn't taught much about spirit and the role that it plays in motivating all of us to do what we do. Because nationalists feel like they have to be hard and uncompromising. And Shopway is chuckling. But spiritual expression is not a weakness. Because our strength comes through spirit. And the reason we call on the ancestors is because we understand that it's their shoulders that we stand on, and that we need their spirit with us to motivate us to keep going in the face of what appears to be insurmountable odds. The U.S. is a beast. It's a beast. And sometimes when you staring that beast in the face, you can't help but be afraid. But you have to call on the courage and the spirit of the ancestors to keep going. You have to pray hard sometimes.
That's right.
Before you go into battle, and pray that you're going to come out of battle victorious. We are spiritual people. And we've survived this long because of that spirit. Black August is a mechanism that we used to rejuvenate that spirit every year. And I know the young sister on there said they revitalized it in 1998. It never went anywhere. Made it more visible. But folks I know never stopped. We make excuses about the fasting sometimes. That's hard. But sometimes it's necessary.
That's right.
To emphasize a spiritual cleansing, a rebirth, a new commitment to what it is that we're all about.
Right.
And that's what Black August is. That's all it is.